साहस्य लोकेषु न किंचित अपि दुर्लभम। हमारे उत्साह, हमारी स्पिरिट से बढ़कर के दुनिया में कोई फोर्स नहीं होता। उत्साह परम बलम।
Prarambh, Utsaha Parambalam. Taking inspiration from Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision. Let us ignite the next major movement for startups. Let's celebrate the ideas and the excitement. Let's exchange awareness and knowledge. Let's expand the horizons. Let's establish accolades. Let's embrace. Let us initiate. Prarambh, Utsaha, Parambalam. Startup India International Summit.
Immense pleasure to welcome all of you to this session where we have esteemed panelists from around the world participating. Very briefly, we have Professor K. Vijayaraghavan, Principal Scientific Advisor to Government of India, Mr. Arif Khan, CEO and Managing Director of IDLC, with over 26 years of strategy, capital markets, investments, and regulatory experience. Mr. Tandon Shering, Director General, Department of Cottage and Small Industry, Ministry of Economic Affairs, Bhutan. Dr. Marlar Myo Nyunt, Deputy Director General of the Directorate of Investment and Company Administration under the Ministry of Investment and Foreign Economic Relationship, Myanmar. Mr. Deepta Shah, founder, 54i Ventures, which is a boutique firm that works with technology-enabled SMEs and ecosystem enablers. Mr. Sachindra Samararatne, Program Head, Information and Communication Technology Agency, Sri Lanka. And Mr. Parivat Wongsamaran, Director, Startup Thailand at National Innovation Agency. Welcome all of you again. It's an honor to moderate this session. We have a very diverse panel. You know, startups are recognized as engines of economic growth, job creation, wealth creation, and startups have done extremely well in actually changing the mindset of youth today, encourage the mindset of youth today. We are in the midst of a global pandemic, and at least in India, we have been able to face this pandemic in the startup ecosystem reasonably well. You know, in the beginning, there were concerns, but I think the whole ecosystems players coming together, you know, with government giving the leadership, with the investors pitching in and making sure that their best startups are well protected, the founders working very hard to ensure that they repurpose and renew their focus on their business, and you know, all the ecosystem players, you know, the accelerators, the incubators, all supporting this, have made sure that the startups ecosystem, the startup environment in India has withstood the COVID challenge. In fact, the number of unicorns is expected to go to 50 by the end of FY21 from about 35 today in India. So that, I believe, is a significant jump. Investors are coming and startups are growing. You know, the government of India had taken significant initiatives to support startup. The Startup India, launched by our Honorable Prime Minister in 2016, is one of the reasons, I believe, one of the major reasons, I believe, that we have a very strong entrepreneurial ecosystem. Government has come up with many initiatives, including fund of funds of um, rupees 10,000 crores to support startups. They have established incubators, established tinkering labs, come up with tax benefits, simplified process for recognizing new businesses. There are several of the initiatives that the government came up with, and in some sense, this is the reason why India became the third largest ecosystem for startups in the world. So today, we will have an opportunity to learn from each other, to understand how, as an ecosystem, as a global ecosystem, we can work together, learn from each other, and help support each other. Of course, the objective is to, improve the ecosystem for startups even better, learn from each other in the initiatives that we have taken in our own countries, in our own ecosystems, and make sure that we have a platform for exchange of ideas, exchange of knowledge in the future. I will start with Professor Vijay Raghavan, Principal Scientific Advisor. He has played a very important role in both on the research side, innovation side, as well as on the startup ecosystem side. Prior to his current role, he was Secretary of Department of Biotechnology. And so I'm going to actually ask him 3 questions, and Vijay, you can answer them together. You have approximately 7 minutes. It is to actually talk about DBT and its major initiative, which is the BIRAC, which is the entity that is set up to promote interaction between industry and the startup research and startup ecosystem. I believe it's one of the best examples of how the ecosystem can be created for innovation. And second, I would actually kind of request you to give a bird's eye view of the last 5 years, actually, how the environment, how the government has encouraged startups to flourish, to become the third largest in the world. And lastly, what are a couple of things that we have to still do, the unfinished agenda. So, start with BIRAC, look back at the last 5 years, and what are a couple of things that we should do to even make the system better. Over to you, Vijay. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Chris. And it's really wonderful to be here in this gathering of people from everywhere. It's really indicative of the importance of our interactions for startups and also for a broader purpose, which I'll come to next, about the state of our countries and the planet itself. Now, Chris asked me 3 questions. First is about the Biotechnology Industry Research Assistance Council, or BIRAC, which is run by the Department of Biotechnology. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. And the next question was about what has happened in the past few years in the startup ecosystem. And the third is really going ahead, what we need to do. Is that the third one? Is that right, Chris?
Yes, maybe a couple of key things that we need to look at.
Right. Now, the startup ecosystem in the IT sector, which is more and also more anchored in the e-commerce sector, has the fortunate situation of speed in responding to immediate economic requirements of various kinds. But if countries such as all of ours over here, they need to link the startup into deeper domains, then these startups need to also be connected with the hard touch and feel of various kinds: health, agriculture, transport, technology development, and so on. So you cannot have a startup ecosystem driven substantially by only e-commerce. Of course, e-commerce is very important. FinTech is very important. Now, with that in mind, BIRAC was started. BIRAC was started, interestingly, about 10 years ago, but it really took off in the last 7 or 8 years. And what it does is really takes, in a very difficult area of life sciences, it takes entrepreneurs past each stage and passes on the baton to the next. So it starts with what are called ignition grants in our academia ecosystem for those who want to take on jobs, start companies of their own. And these ignition grants allow them to play around and with their ideas and go to the level of prototyping. And this has been a very big hit. And the very important way in which a government structure has done this is that it has given resources to other structures to each in their own regions start these BIG, the Biotechnology Ignition Grant, or the big grants. So those are, it's sort of arm's length from government bureaucracy. And this has been extraordinarily transformative. At the next level, these startups are not necessarily the same ones. You can have lateral entry at every stage. At the next level, these startups can go to set up their companies, and they will get grants or loans. And typically these are grants. And the way these grants are given is a review team goes and checks what they're doing, analyzes them, sees whether they're financially likely to become sound or not, and can give them substantial support over a 3-year period to go from being early stage to mid stage. So that's the next level. And at the third level, there are grants which are of two kinds. One, partnership with big industry so that you can scale in multiple ways if you want to, but also partnership between startups, academia, and industry to take on to solve complex problems which need to go to market. So this has been largely focused on the biotechnology sector, but similarly, on a much more broader national scale, 2 other organizations have had enormous impact on startups. One is a mission called the Atal Innovation Mission, started by a policy think tank, the Niti Aayog, and they have incubators tinkering labs in school. About now several thousand, over 5,000 labs have been started in school, where finishing school kids can do whatever they want and play around. And they have incubators, and these are 2 kinds. There are incubators which are already there, which are supported by the Atal Innovation Mission on a much broader level than what BIRAC does. BIRAC does it only for biotech and life sciences. Atal Innovation does it broadly, but they also start new incubators. And this is again seeded an enormous startup culture. And of course, Startup India itself is a major venture in which it integrates all the startups in the country and brings them together in multiple ways for interacting and so on. So this is the broad genesis of the startup. Now, what's happened in the last 5 years? Let me tell you very frankly what are the good things and where we need to go ahead even more. On the plus side, because of all of this, and for really 2 important breaks which have been given by the government over the last 5 years. One is tax breaks. So you have a tax break if you're a startup, and particularly for the sectors such as biotech where the returns are long, the tax break as a certified startup goes for a much longer period. So that's one good aspect. And the other is a patent box regime, where if you're patenting your products here, then again you get a break in terms of various tax benefits and so on. So these 2 have had an enormous impact on the growth. What is the challenge which startups face? As from all of this, you can see startups are doing really well, and India has really shot up in the startup area in a variety of sectors, including deep tech. The challenge is going from early stage startup to actually becoming very big. Now, there are multiple kinds of complexities there, some which are internal, some which are external. The internal ones are that, for you to be able to get investment to grow, you need, a venture system of a large kind. Now, that venture system is present in some areas and not in others. And this is something which has happened rather well now. Banks and industry and government are working together to scale them up. So overall, I think that these challenges are being addressed and we will see a very substantial growth going forward. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Vijayaraghavan. Good to understand how government has played an important role and what are some of the challenges in the future. Now I'll come to Mr. Arif Khan. And, I'm going to again ask all the questions up front so that you have, in one stretch, an ability to present your country and your startup ecosystem. So the questions are, how is Bangladesh doing as a startup ecosystem? What are some of the important initiatives? And what you believe is the key to the success of startups in Bangladesh? And the second question is very simple: how together we can learn from each other and work towards creating even a better startup ecosystem. So over to you, Mr. Arif Khan. And again, please keep your comments to 7 minutes. Thank you.
Oh, great. Good afternoon, Gopal Krishna ji, and all the panelists and the viewers. Very good afternoon from Dhaka, Bangladesh. Coming back to your question, I would like to give some background of Bangladesh. It's a frontier economy, around $350 billion GDP. And for the last 1 decade, the average growth rate of the country was above 7%. And this year, our growth rate was 5.2% in the Corona pandemic year. It's one of the fastest growing economy in the entire Asia Pacific region. And the per capita income of Bangladesh is now exceeding around $2,000 and we have seen a lot of progress coming up in the macro. One of the highest foreign currency reserve situation now, and remittance is very robust. In that context, I would say that another major thing development has happened in Bangladesh in the last 10-12 years is the digital infrastructure that we see now. In a country of 160 million population, now almost 150 million people has got tele density. It's very high, 80-90% people are connected with the telecommunication, and more than 100 million people are now connected in internet. So that even the rural area, what we call the very distant rural area, has got digital centers. So this has created an enabling environment for actually solving many problems of the society. As I mentioned, that it's like India, Pakistan, or Sri Lanka in certain situations culture-wise. So we've got lots of problems to solve. But earlier there was not enough digital infrastructure, and now we can see that platform is ready. In terms of startup ecosystem, we have been seeing some sort of starting of this culture way back from 2015. And when the first Bangladesh Securities and Exchange Commission brought with this alternative investment rules like in India's SEBI, and that rules said that how fund managers can set up a fund and how we can channelize this fund to the ventures. And then immediately, and that was also a government initiative, and immediately our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and her advisor, ICT advisor, Mr. Sajib Wajid Joy, under their initiative, ICT Ministry came up with more startup related issues. They came up with a project called IDEA to support the very early start up companies, and allocated almost $100 million in ICT Ministry with IDEA and other projects as well. And very lately in the last year, we have seen that government of Bangladesh has set up a company which is known as Startup Bangladesh, and they appointed a new CEO, and that the team is in the formative stage. And government allocated another $60 million to be deployed by that company. So that tells that, like India, what Modi government has done in last 7-8 years back, Bangladesh is possibly there, and all the major government initiatives are talking about about startup community. That's the public sector. In the private sector, like where I work, IDLC Finance is a large SME financier and the consumer financier. We are managing around $1.2 billion and with under 1,400 people in my team. And we are also coming up in this. We are basically a lender, but now we are also stepping in venture financing. We just recently set up our small venture fund. This is the first financial brand sponsors venture fund in the country. IFC is stepping up in this ecosystem. A lot of international investors are coming up. Although, like Mr. Gopal mentioned, that India has got almost 50 unicorn. We are yet to see our first unicorn, but lots of companies are coming up. I can see now active 2,500 startup companies are working in Bangladesh. Every year, around 50 startups are newborn babies are coming up, but very young population. You know, Bangladesh has got almost 60% plus people less than 30 years of age. Very young, energetic, kindly, to some extent, IT-enabled. One of the facts that we need to mention that in freelance tech sector, Bangladesh market share is 16% in the world, and that's growing. Although not very high-end value chain in the value chain, but our people are very enthusiastic and very entrepreneurial spirit is there. So I can see from my last 30 years experience in the banking sector, in the financial sector, and also I worked 5 years as a regulator in the Securities and Exchange Commission. So what we can see that the ecosystem is building up in a very nascent stage, but there are lots of energy. But also it's true that when there is enthusiasm, not all projects are successful. In normally it says that in venture 70-80% business fails. But we have to actually nourish this culture so that young startup companies are coming up. We can see now in the education sector, in the health sector, in the tech sector, in agriculture, in supply chain, in almost every major areas, these startups are coming up and solving the problems of society, and people are ready to give them funding. And we have started our funding from our fund. Many other funds are coming up. Government startup, Bangladesh is also starting possibly funding. So I guess that you will see lots of activities in the next couple of years. So this is the general environment in our country at this point in time. But yeah, as Mr. Gopal mentioned, what needs to be done more, I would say that we need to simplify the process. You know, Bangladesh is now kind of many Japanese and Chinese investors are coming, billions of dollars are pouring into the country, and everybody wants to see that we do a bit simpler process. I think it's a legacy of this region that process needs to be simplified. And of course, the fiscal benefits should be given to the young startups, because, you know, we have seen that in America, almost 34% jobs are being created by venture-backed finance companies. The names Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, or Cisco, these are not funded by the banks. These are venture financing organizations. They are now the movers and shakers of the world. And Bangladesh government has realized. I think I'll stop there. So I think that Bangladesh government and we are doing more, but we need to simplify the process and we need to give a lot more fiscal measures to help the system. Thank you. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Arif. Sorry for interrupting. We have a very tight schedule. That's the reason. So let me now
Perfect.
ask Mr. Tandon Sharing of the Bhutan ecosystem. You know, how is the startup ecosystem there, and how we can work together to build even stronger startup ecosystem in Bhutan. Over to you, Mr. Sharing. And again, please try to minimize your presentation to 7 minutes.
Thank you, moderator Chris. It's a privilege to be talking on this important topic. Its subject matter is very close to my heart, not because I know so much about it, but I'm rather passionate about because it has a larger impact on so many of our youths who are particularly unemployed. So to me, it's a very close subject matter. But nevertheless, in the Bhutanese context, the journey of the startup has not been that long. It's a very recent phenomena. Now the government has put a much more focus on the development of the startup, the ecosystem here in Bhutan. The small analogy that I can put up is that we are just making a baby step. What we are thinking is a person with an idea. It's a startup journey map that I'm just narrating, is that a person with an idea who comes into a startup, all the supports were provided, and he goes out as a very successful, come out with a very successful product and in the market, and which is accepted by the consumer. So this is a simple the analogy that we use. So based on that, we develop the whole ecosystem for the startup. And this ecosystem mainly comprise of the 6 domains for the startup. And in the generic, we also use it for the entire entrepreneurship ecosystem development. But mainly these comprises of, these were drawn purely based on the constraints and challenges that were being faced by our startups. It's purely inputs from our startup. But if I may narrate one by one and what were the government interventions regarding on each ecosystem, one being the policy and the legislative framework, because for a small countries who have come up from thing, and we are still with the certain regulatory bogged down with so many regulatory things. So it's very important that we have to come up with very regulatory frameworks which are very conducive for the growth of the small entrepreneurs, particularly for the startups. So that's one area that we are looking at it. And we are also seeing that how best we can, right, in lieu of the licensing systems, where so many clearance were required as a prerequisite for the licensing, how we can simply register and start the business. Then other thing we are looking about on the regulatory aspects of that is the fiscal incentives. How we can provide fiscal incentive to boost or to attract our cottage, the startups and entrepreneurs in taking up the things. Particularly what we are looking at is the exempting the startups and the cottage and small industries, because most of the startups are in the cottage and small industry level. So government provides a fiscal incentives, exempting from having to pay from the business income tax. We also waive taxes for the import of raw materials and machineries, and also provide certain access to the foreign exchange for purchase of the raw materials as well as machineries. And in order to, these are very important, the regulatory things that are important to foster or to attract our startups and the entrepreneurs to take up the business. The other thing that we are also down the regulatory aspects that we are talking about is the e-commerce policy, because now particularly the pandemic has shown us how we can leverage on the IT industry force. So we are putting much more focus on the regulatory aspects of the e-commerce to facilitate the growth of our cottage and small industries, and as well as for the startups. And the other thing, what's more important for all this element to come, the second most important thing is the culture of entrepreneurship and human development is very important. We need to focus more resources on that one. If that is the seed that we sow, if we have to reap a very important if we have to have a very successful startups and entrepreneurs, so we promote a culture of entrepreneurship through the conduct of the entrepreneurship courses on a regular basis. We conduct the need-based trainings for the entrepreneurs, and we also support them the winning ideas through hackathons, innovative idea challenges, and we also reward the successful entrepreneurs so that they become a champion, and so the other entrepreneurs will also emulate them to be a successful entrepreneur. The third ecosystem, the domain that we are talking, and which is the most important, is the business development support and the infrastructure. When I talk about the infrastructure, what we are talking about is the startup center or the incubation center. One of the most major problem that our entrepreneur or a startup face is a reasonable place to start their businesses. So now government has established a startup center, and we are also in the process of establishing two different areas. So that will provide co-working spaces or individual space in the startup center where their idea could be materialized. That is the place that at the affordable places that we are providing to the startups. And also we are also in the process of establishing so many incubation centers in the universities and technicals, because these are the breeding grounds of the entrepreneurs and innovations that are happening these days. So we are in the process of establishing incubation centers in the thing. Along with that, the fab labs to develop a prototype so that people can come up with the prototype products, help them in making them much more innovative on their ideas. Then we also, with regard to the business development service within the startup, we are also trying to provide them various business development services, such as like a mentorship, because it's very important to have a mentorship. But unfortunately,
Mr. Sharing, can
yes.
you wind up now? Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So basically, there are so many. We are trying to intervene at various ecosystems so that it becomes a thriving. And we are yet to learn from other, like particularly from India, who is the leading that ecosystem in the world. So I'll leave with this much for the time being.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharing. I'll now come to Myanmar, Dr. Marla Myo Nyant. I'm very glad that we have a woman representative on our panel. It's very nice. So you are representing the entire women of this region. Over to you about the startups initiatives in Myanmar, and how we could work together to mutually benefit our ecosystems. Over to you, Dr. Nyant. Please unmute.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Good afternoon to you all, and my apology also go to the host for your inconvenience today. Allow me to introduce my directory first. Even though I participate in this event as a panelist on behalf of our Ministry of Investment and Foreign Economy Relations. My directorate actually is Directorate of Investment and Company Administration. We call it DIGA. And DIGA is responsible for DIGA is taking a two role for the business community, and DIGA is responsible for both investment and company administration. And we also have a Myanmar Investment Commission. So DIGA serves as a Secretariat Office of Myanmar Investment Commission. Nilai. And so the worldwide spread of the COVID-19 pandemic has had a severe impact on the global economy. According to International Monetary Fund, global growth is focused as negative growth rate. Besides, in many economies, the GDP growth rates show significant negative growth during the pandemic period. To address the impact of COVID-19, the government formed the Economic Remedy Working Committee and adopted the COVID-19 Economy Relief Plan, CERP, to lessen the negative economic impact and to achieve rapid recovery from economic declines. So CERP is a short-term plan aligned with the Myanmar Sustainable Development Plan. We call it MSDP, which is connected with sustainable development, which is a roadmap for government planning and priorities. According to the CERP, the MIC is accelerating investment approval process of those reputable pipeline investment proposals. In addition, MIC emphasizes the investment aftercare services for the existing investor in order to respond to the impact of COVID-19, the long-term needs and the promotions of investment. Moreover, the midterm Myanmar Economy Resilience and Reform Plan that is now being finalized will act as a link between the CERP and MSDP. Within the MERRP, action plan are designed to achieve the MSDP goal relating to macroeconomic stability and less private sector-led economic growth. We are also trying to limit the economic consequences of global pandemic in many ways, including the implementation of COVID-19 Economy Relief Plan, CRP, that is an unprecedented public policy response and preparing the new Myanmar Economy Recovery and Reform Plan that emphasizes the continuing importance of inclusive and sustainable growth, green investment in renewable energy and infrastructure, and improvement to connectivity, and articulates the essential role we envision for our dynamic and entrepreneurial private sector. In order to reduce the production costs and other charges incurred by investors for their investment, which obtain the permit or endorsement, or foreign direct investment, which are intended to invest in Myanmar during the COVID-19 period, 50% of service fees are reduced by the Myanmar Investment Commission from the date of 20th April 2020. This amendment of service fee is applying during the COVID-19 period stipulated by the Union and the Myanmar Investment Commission, where we consider and announce the service fee after the expiration of this COVID-19 period. We facilitate the visa extension process by providing the recommendations for business visa, extensions of foreign directors, members, technicians, and their family member of the companies registered at TIGER registry, and of those companies which have not obtained the permit from the Myanmar Investment Commission throughout the online. Myanmar Investment Commission, OSGI are preparing an online investment application system. We call it OIAS. The online system will facilitate investment application even under the situation where restrictions on international travel and face-to-face meeting remain. So we are improving the transparency and efficiency of investment application by introducing online application systems. And also we have launched second investment policy review by the OECD, the government with in-depth analysis together with a set of comprehensive policy recommendations designed to help lay the foundations for a new investment regime and quality labor standard, and with it, a new era of quality and responsible investment into Myanmar. Myanmar Investment Promotion Plan, we call it MIPP, which aim to address more than $200 billion through our responsible and quality investment over the next 20 years, facilitating Myanmar transition to a middle income country.
Please summarize, Binder.
Yes. All these reforms boost ease of doing business, investor confidence, increase efficiency and responsible and mutually beneficial investment, which contribute to Myanmar growing economy. Yes, that's all mine.
Thank you very much. See, we have a hard stop at 1 p.m. IST. That's what the organizers have told me, and that's why I'm trying to make sure that we are on time. So now let me request Mr. Deepta Shah from Nepal. Again, I know the same two questions. What are some of the things that people need to know about the Nepal startup ecosystem and the government initiatives, and how we can work together to strengthen our ecosystems. Over to you, Mr. Shah.
Thank you, Mr. Gopalakrishnan and colleagues for joining on this panel. It's a real pleasure and a delight for me to be a part of this conversation. The startup ecosystem and related work is very dear to my heart. Before I get into the particulars about what the ecosystem might benefit from, let me offer a frame of reference that I'm guessing everybody here is familiar with, just to set the context for what the Nepal ecosystem looks like. So let's consider the India stack and move from the bottom of the stack up, and we'll get to digital entrepreneurship at the end. So if you consider the core digital infrastructure in Nepal, we are sufficiently advanced to enable a robust digital ecosystem, is my own assessment. If you move one step up, the government has initiated initiatives to take care of the digital ID, universal digital ID concept. It's being rolled out as we speak. A little bit of a delay owing to COVID and other related factors, but the progress is in motion. Then you move up to the digital financial services layer. And we have quite a robust and growing digital financial services layer in Nepal. There are a number of private sector entities, both on the PSO and the PSP sides, working to basically serve the ecosystem here. to enhance the financial inclusion and also access to different forms of digital financial services. And then we get on top of these three layer sort of foundational elements, we get to the discussion about digital entrepreneurship. And here, the ecosystem is nascent, but growing. And because the foundational elements are more or less in place, we feel the ecosystem is at a bit of an inflection point. So let's consider sort of the areas where the ecosystem might benefit from cross-border knowledge sharing, connectivity, and so on and so forth, right? So if you go down the 5 elements that we think are relevant for ecosystem growth, any ecosystem growth, right? Let's start with the knowledge base. And when it comes to the knowledge base, in particularly when it comes to digital entrepreneurship and folks who are innovating using very technically, deep technical skill requirements, right? That sector, there's a tremendous amount of benefit that we can have from cross-leveraging knowledge from other parts of the region, broadly speaking, right? So a lot of things we can learn from what's happening in Bangalore, a lot of things we can learn from what's happening in Dhaka, Bangkok, across the region. And so there's a really big opportunity set, we think, here to enable those connections and let the knowledge flow and exchange happen. This also relates to the point on networking. So when I talk about knowledge, I'm talking about very specific knowledge areas. So the general knowledge we can surface at home here in Nepal, but when it comes to technical knowledge, that sort of exchange would be very relevant for our 2 ecosystems to exchange, or rather our collective ecosystems to exchange. Then you come to the question on funding. And here, we always run into this perennial question of how much funding is enough funding, and the answer is always, it's never enough. So what is, if you take a sort of a slightly higher level view of what the funding environment looks like in Nepal, it's not very dissimilar from the observations that some of the other colleagues on this panel have already made, right? By this, what I mean is, when you look at the funding continuum, there are a certain number of qualified investors, angel investors, at the very beginning of the funding ecosystem here. And then the next check starts at about $200,000, $300,000. So there's a huge gap in terms of the quantum of funding required to enable digital entrepreneurship, and also the instruments that are available to enable digital entrepreneurship in its ecosystem. So again, the ability to learn and leverage knowledge in the sorts of instruments that have been used, and the sort of policies and programs that other countries have used within the region and more broadly, there's a real big opportunity set to have that conversation as well. And enable really the funding conversation to not just be insular within this ecosystem, but to allow the flow of capital across borders, and for Indian or regional investors to come in Nepal and vice versa. We do border the 2 most populous states in India, so the opportunity set for cross-market collaboration when it comes to digital entrepreneurship is significant, and we need to be able to leverage those opportunities more fully. Finally, the 2 enabling factors, I think, when you think about digital entrepreneurship here, the ability to access space. One of the colleagues mentioned this earlier as well. So there is a sort of burgeoning set of private sector activities that are designed to enable co-working spaces and environments for digital entrepreneurship to happen, but there's not enough of it. And unfortunately, a lot of these activities are concentrated just in Kathmandu. So efforts need to be taken, again, learning from some of the lessons that might be available in other ecosystems, how to broaden this network across the country, right? So what are the forms of capital that we can insource to enable the growth of these sorts of environments beyond just the capital, so that the robustness of the ecosystem actually grows across and beyond the borders of Kathmandu. Last but not least, and this is another very important point, comes the discussion of digital skills to enable the entrepreneurship to happen. And again, here, the access to sort of the technical know-how and institutes that exist across borders, and for very mindful and sort of like targeted exchange programs to happen across these ecosystems would be very, very beneficial for this ecosystem, and hopefully for ecosystems that receive some of the candidates that come from Nepal. So if you look at the entire sort of gamut of opportunities, they are significant. And we hope through dialogues like the one we're having today that we can move from sort of the more conceptual academic discourses to something more practical to enable actual exchange of knowledge, exchange of networks, enable the flow of funding across borders to mutually benefit our respective ecosystems and grow the entire pot of the pie, if you will. So I'll stop there. I know I was moving a little bit fast. I apologize.
No.
Just wanted to get everything.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing the framework. Wonderful ideas, actually. And I'll, if I have time, I'll briefly mention at the end how we can take it forward. Now, let me come to Mr. Sachindra Samararatne from Sri Lanka. Over to you, and you know the questions by now about the Sri Lankan ecosystem and what we can do to work together to improve the ecosystem in all our countries. Over to you.
First of all, thank you very much for inviting ICT Agency of Sri Lanka to be on this panel. Under the digital economy strategy, we have very potential task of reaching 1,000 startups by 2024 and an export revenue from the entire technology industry to be $3 billion by that time, and employing 300,000 workforce. So under that broader vision, the startup ecosystem is striving to become a startup nation by 2024, a journey that we started around 2010, not a long time, a journey of 10 years, which ICTA and the ecosystem has been very part of. So the particular question that was posed to me was on the talent, which is already available in Sri Lanka. We rank quite high on the skills index under the Global Competitiveness Index, and our graduate pool ranks number 44 in the world for a skilled graduate pool in the world. So my question posed was, how do we transform this skilled graduate pool to become tech startups? So we have slightly different challenge. Since our ecosystem is known for offshore operations and captive innovation centers, there's a huge demand by the broader tech industry to employ this graduate pool within it. So it's a good problem to have, but it challenges those who want to start off as entrepreneurs. As we know, in South Asia, entrepreneurship is not exactly a culture within our homes, within our schools, or within our universities. It's something that we need to instill. So therefore, with the 85,000 workforce that we have in the IT industry and the 30,000 graduates which come out of our university system and around 100,000 which come out through the vocational education system, everyone comes with a mindset of being employed. So therefore, how do we utilize policies, mechanisms to instill a culture of entrepreneurship in the university, vocational and tertiary institutes and sector is what Sri Lanka is currently dealing with and preparing policies for. So there are two mechanisms on how we plan to develop this startup output funnel. So currently, according to Startup Genome, Sri Lanka estimates to about 400 to 450 startups as a startup output and an ecosystem value of $117 million. So if you are to grow this startup output to 1,000, there's one way of converting the existing workforce who are in the technology sector to start their own businesses. They come with maturity, they come with skill, they come with professionalism, and where they will start off and also attract more investments, because investors obviously invest in entrepreneurs more than the idea. So that's one funnel. Another funnel of startups coming into our system is through the universities, the graduate entrepreneurs. So our policies of having a better environment for businesses, like the digitized register of companies that Sri Lanka has, enabling more seed-level investment opportunities, enabling and having conducive telecommunication regulatory policies, especially giving access for IoT-related startups in the system, and also having better foreign exchange policies and intellectual property act being reformed are areas that we see could enable the graduates who are coming out of the system to start their own businesses. Going back one step, working with the higher education system, we want to inculcate an entrepreneurial culture and mindset in these sectors in institutional approach, where some of the entrepreneurship policies will have to be developed at university level. I'm sure even in your countries, the university acts might be a bit old, then, and maybe certain reforms might be needed where commercialization of intellectual property owned by the universities with graduate research and room for technology business incubators in universities where there is provisions made is highly important for us to ensure that technology technology-related startups output is increased in a particular country. Another question which was posed to me was on how do we attract more foreign investors and venture capital into the country. I'm happy to say that the recently launched Lankan Angel Network Fund has attracted over 30 foreign investors in its 100 investor pool of $100 million. And also venture capital funds such as Blue Ocean Ventures have attracted investors like Rajan Anand, who's already known in the Indian angel network and partner of Sequoia. So we have attracted foreign investments into the country, especially because there is no tax on foreign investor dividends when you invest in a Sri Lankan startup. Technology companies are 0% corporate taxed in Sri Lanka. So I would say it's a tax haven in terms of that. But in terms of policies, we are looking at the India model of how do we instill LLP structures, limited liability partner structures, as opposed to the LLC structures in a country. How do we enable double taxation treaties within countries, and especially within the countries that we have right now on this call, and having more attractive foreign exchange policies, maybe tax incentives for seed stage investment. And through those policies and reforms, we plan to encourage more investment into the Sri Lankan ecosystem by the region and by VCs all over the world. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Samararatne. Thank you very much. And the last but not the least, a very entrepreneurial country. So let me come to Mr. Parivat Wongsamaran and listen to what is happening in Thailand and how we can work together closer. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon. I would like to brief about the startup ecosystem in Thailand. It just happened in the last 4 years, and it's going to be the issue from the government would like to accelerate and reform for the economy in Thailand at that time. So we also work together as a whole. We, National Innovation Agency, is the system integrator. We also work together with the government, the private sector, and the association as well. We have about 10 ministry and about 35 government agencies work together on the policy levels. And they also have each of them, they also have the mission, would like to encourage and support the startup in particular way already. And so after COVID right now, we have many challenges because it's a downturn for the startup in Thailand. They also face many obstacles to survive in that period. So we have many policy would like to encourage let the startup ecosystem back to the normal period as well. So the first one about the student, as many people mentioned about university. Since the COVID-19, about last year, this year, and maybe next year, we're gonna have a new graduate from the student as a university, right? And most of them might not have get a job, maybe unemployed. We would like to encourage them to set up their own firm, to be entrepreneurship, travel with the team together with the friends, and we also have some fun to inject for them as well. So we gonna have the new seed for the new startup from the university as well. Second, policy about the domestic market consumption, because the COVID-19, many the domestic and the purchasing power from the customer is to be cut. So we would like to reestablish the circuit again. So the government would like to have a support for the domestic market consumption as well. So they also have any policy to encourage the people to buy the product from the startup. And they would like the good idea that have we have the cash flow for the startup to survive in that period as well. And the last one for the investment, because in the past we don't have many venture capital in Thailand. We just have about the corporate venture capital, because many firms, the large corporate in Thailand, eager to work together with the startup. So set up their own fund and would like to invest in startup. So in the top 30 in stock exchange of Thailand, they also have their own fund. And some of them also invest in deep tech startup as well. So about the investment for this year, we don't have strict on just only for the large corporate. We also would like to encourage the family business to be the angel investor, and we also educate them and how to invest in the tech company. And we have like the platform for them to meet up the startup as well. So as well as the Stock Exchange of Thailand this year, they would like to launch the new market for the SME and the startup to raise fund in a small amount of money. But we have to develop more ecosystem together. And the last one about the collaboration together between Thailand and among the country, either in India and Nepal and so on. We might, after the COVID-19, we might have the like exchange the market together as well, because we have the similar profile about the market. So we think that the startup, one, we apart from the COVID-19, we can have the many activity ecosystem together. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving us the different perspectives. It's very clear that different countries, different governments are taking different initiatives, and I strongly urge us to stay connected and let's learn from each other. We had interesting suggestions on cross-border venture capital movement and what can we do to encourage cross-border investments, including the idea like Mr. Samaratne talked about, the returns and the dividends will not be taxed in that country, etc. So we'll have to look at how we can encourage cross-border exchange of funds. We should also look at cross-border movement of startups themselves. How can we go into each other's market and let our startups explore those markets? In that sense, we need to look at incubators being used as a landing point for these startups to move to different countries. I won't try to summarize everything, but most importantly, I wish this had been a physical event. Then there would have been a significant networking opportunity. So I look forward to actually meeting all of you physically post-COVID and working together to develop the startup ecosystem in each of these countries. I'll be summarizing some of the suggestions and giving it to our government, and we will work towards actually incorporating these in the government-to-government discussions. So thank you all very much. I know that we had limited time, but the whole idea was to introduce you to the audience, introduce your startup ecosystem to the audience, and your contact information, etc., are available to all the participants. Hopefully, they'll reach out to you. And let me wish you a wonderful 2021 and an amazing year for the startups in your country. Thank you all very much, and thank you, Professor Vijayaraghavan, for kicking it off. And thank you very much. Over to you, the moderator.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.